Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss how long we think Amiibos will last. So recently we had the hour-long Nintendo Direct, and it was like, hey, here's a bunch of cool stuff coming out for Mario, we got Kirby coming out, I'm sure, they announced stuff for Metroid, I'm sure when Yoshi gets closer, we will have, of course, Amiibo for that as well, but it's like, hey, here's more Amiibo coming out. And Amiibo are expensive now. And I remember I first realized this when they were like, hey, we're gonna make Street Fighter 6 Amiibo. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I would love to get a Kimberly Amiibo. And then I looked at it and those were like 30 FN dollars. And I was like, never mind. Like, I forget it. Like, I wasn't even gonna get the game on Switch 2. I don't even have a Switch 2. I was literally just gonna get the Amiibo, like, oh, it'd be cool. I have like a cool little figure, which I realized I have the deluxe edition of the game. I have a much larger figure. There's no reason for that anyway. But when it was first announced, it was like, cool, I would love, let me check it out, let me see, so, a little Amiibo to go with my Ryu. And I do think they're bigger than the old Amiibo, which is why they cost more. But then it starts to get into that weird realm of like, okay, well, they're making them, more detailed and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, no, that's cool, it makes sense why they're making them a bit more expensive. But then it gets to the point of like, all right, well, they're this expensive, I could just get like an actual, if I'm just going for like a basic, figure that's just gonna stand up on, a little black circle pad, I might as well spend 30 bucks from an actual company that does it all the time, because it will have, most likely at least, more detail. So it's an interesting change that has happened. And then with the most recent thing, we've gotten to the point of like 50 effing dollars. Once again, they're big. They're not big enough for me to care, but they are bigger. Kirby Air Riders even, I don't know if it's I don't think it's the first one, but they were like, hey, you can, swap the riders. They all have like the Kirby is on the star, of course, and then I think it was Waddle Dee was on like a bike or something like that. And it was like, hey, you can actually like unplug them and swap them into the different vehicles. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. But is it $50 cool? $30, $40 cool? The Metroid thing, is that $50 cool? As big as it is it $50? And then the crazy thing about that is like, all right, well, that one is pretty big, I guess. I don't know the exact ranges. I know like whatever one is the most expensive, which I would assume is probably going to end up being the Metroid one, because of course it comes with the whole motorcycle. That's probably the $50 one. But the other ones are, we're in that 30 to 50, between 30 and $50 now, which is crazy. And every day I see more Amiibo come out and they're more expensive. And I just think back to when, this is a crazy random story, but when Toys R Us was shutting down, that's how I got my Ryu Amiibo, because there was a wall of Ryu for $5. And I was like, oh man, nobody wants Ryu, huh? That's crazy. And I bought one. And then I was like, I think back on that as one of those random moments. We, as nerds, we'll buy random things. I may or may not have 2 fully sealed copies of, Mario 3D All-Stars for no apparent reason, but to resell them later. Maybe. That's possible. But I definitely didn't think of it that day where I was like, let me buy up all these $5 Ryu. I just thought, nobody's gonna care. And then of course, go down the line, they're back up to 15 bucks. And it's like, I could have bought a bunch of those for $5 effing dollars when Toys R Us was like, here, take everything. And I missed my chance. I got my own Ryu, which is nice, but I missed my chance. That was probably like one of those rare moments of actually being able to get something. But that was during that era where it seemed like, all right, they're kind of dying down a bit. And now they've kind of just swept back in. They picked back up. They're actually almost, pretty much finishing out Smash Brothers. They're like, hey, we're actually going to release even more characters that you guys were asking for that we never actually put out. So here's more Amiibo. Splatoon is like the only game, as far as a series, that feels very consistent, where they're like, hey, we are going to constantly do this. Who knows if we should expect anything brand new as far as like Splatoon Raiders, but I have all the Splatoon Amiibo except for the Octolings from 2. Those are the only ones that I don't have. And I don't even have Splatoon 3. I don't even play Splatoon 2 because I don't have the Nintendo Online. That was specifically because I just liked that game so much. I bought the originals when they first had like the triple pack, which I remember, I think the triple pack was like $23 or something like that. Maybe it was 30 when that first came out, but buying the double pack of like Callie and Marie, I remember getting that, it was like 24 bucks, 25, but it's like, okay, it's 2 of them. You split that in half. Yeah, that's like the price of an Amiibo. You just got a 2-pack. I think even the Splatoon 3 ones, where it was like the big Stingray, was probably like 20 or so bucks by itself. But once again, that's a huge one. Like that is the width of like 2 full-on, regular size Amiibo. So that's where it's kind of in that range. But then you get up to $30 and $40 and $50, and it's like, it's still kind of crazy considering it's really for the figure element. Like, I mean, let's be honest, the stuff they put in is kind of garbage. I mean, for Splatoon, it was always just like exclusive costumes, which for Splatoon makes the most sense in the world. Like that just makes perfect sense. That's like the whole thing with that game, is having your own style. So doing that in Splatoon made perfect sense. Doing it in other games, like I think Super Mario Maker, that was a decent one, where it was like, hey, you put this in, you actually unlock costumes for characters, or I think it was pretty much whatever character was what you unlocked. I don't remember if they did costumes as well, but it was like, yeah, you'll basically just get the character. And it's like, okay, that's actually a pretty decent use of an amiibo. And it was just like, hey, if you have an amiibo, here you go. And they did the same thing for Legend of Zelda. Of course, they made Breath of the Wild amiibo, but it was like, hey, if you happen to have the Wolf Link amiibo, which I had for Twilight Princess HD, I was like, hey, we'll just throw the wolf in as like a little fighting companion. That's actually super cool, because that's literally just something, you know, sometimes it depends on what it is, because I forgot what game it was where it was like people were pissed, because it was like you took this out of the game, or, you know, you blocked it off to an amiibo purchase, and I wish I could remember. I feel like it was another Legend of Zelda game. I just can't remember which one it was. It would have to have been either Tears of the Kingdom or probably one of the Hyrule, the Warriors games, but I can't really remember. But there was some amiibo game where it was like, people were pissed, because it was like, this is actually, Skyward Sword, when that came out, that's what it was. It was like, it wasn't technically in the game before, so I think that was their justification, but it was basically like fast travel. And it was like, you blocked off fast travel, which easily, and people were, you know, totally in their right to be upset about it, because it's like, you're doing a re-release. Why would you hold off on like one of the greatest re-release features you could have for an old school game that's open world, when, you know, back in the day we didn't really have fast travel? Why would you exclude that sort of remake feature or re-release feature when you're updating things? And you're like, we'll update this, but we'll make it exclusive to the amiibo. That was insane. So people were rightfully mad about that one. I'm glad I was able to figure it out. I'm like, I knew it was Legend of Zelda. Like, people already didn't really, like, you know, people don't really F with that game as is, and then they're like, you know, let's do this. And it's like, you're making it worse. You're just making it worse. But we're now in the era, like I said, the next batch is coming out, where it's for, you know, the newer games that are releasing, and it just got me thinking, like, how far are these gonna go? Like, I mean, $50 has to be the limit. There's no way. I mean, you can say tariffs all you want, which I'm sure is a part, you know, once again, with the increase of consoles and everything. Of course, that's why some of the prices went up. But at the same time, it's like, that's really interesting. That's the price you're going with for these figures that really don't do much. Like I said, Splatoon, it made sense. Costumes are like the name of the game, outside of actually doing the painting. Legend of Zelda, or specifically Breath of the Wild, it was like, okay, here's a feature that's not even in the game, but if you want an actual, you know, little partner, boom, here's Wolf Link. That's actually cool. It's literally just something that they were like, oh, well, this thing already exists. I think that came out, I mean, heck, that was on the Wii U. So that came out like quite a bit before Breath of the Wild came out, you know, as far as Twilight Princess HD. So they had that, and they kind of just reworked it like, well, we'll just make it work for this. Just like with Mario Maker, it was like, if you got a bunch of these, here you go. You can just throw, you know, just slap new characters in there. If you have them, that's what we're doing. And it's Mario Maker, so once again, it fits right in. It's not something that's taken out. It's, you know, it's something that either blends in, or it's just like an additional feature that's like, this was never part of the game. We just made it like, yeah, if you got it, here you go. And that's cool. And now we're at the point of, you know, when it comes to Kirby Air Riders, I mean, I don't know what else you could have done outside of it being much like Smash Brothers, which of course, same creator and all that stuff. So it's like, I don't know what else you could have really done there outside of costumes or something like that. Or, you know, maybe you get it and you get new rides or something. Like, it's really hard to tell, but, you know, it's basically just the shadow characters from Smash Brothers. It's the same thing. You train up your little character, and then that's about it. For Mario Galaxy, I don't even know what the Mario Galaxy ones actually even do, and I think those are a bit bigger as well, which is why they're, you know, a bit more expensive. But they do look nice. They definitely look cool, and they have like a style to them. But we're at the point of like, all right, you're charging more money, but you're adding in things that even at this point, I feel like most of the time when they add stuff in, it's not even costumes. I think for Donkey Kong, it was costumes. And it's like, once again, costumes kind of the name of the game. In that game, costumes even come with different features. Actually, Splatoon does that too, which I actually always hated. But, you know, that was the thing for Splatoon. So it's like, all right, you get a costume. That works. But what, like we have no clue what's going to happen with like Metroid 4. Who knows what they're going to do with that one? Like, are they going to give you an alternate color for this bike? Maybe. They can't do a new power. It's like you cannot exclude an actual ability or even enhance an ability and then be like, yeah, well, we put that behind. It's like, well, you can't do that. So who knows what this thing's going to do, but it'll be interesting. Is it just going to be a costume? Most likely, because that's the only thing you can do where people are like, oh, I wish I had the costume, but at the same time, not that big of a deal. So it'll be interesting to see what that does. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, once Yoshi ends up coming out with one, it'll be cool to see what that does. It'll be cool to see if the style is different. The ones that I think have unique styles are worth it more. I actually have the 30th anniversary amiibo for Mario when they put out like the 8-bit style, but in 3 dimensions. I bought both of those. So I have like the old school red and brown one, and then I have like the Super Mario World colors, or you could just say modern day colors, I guess, or he's fully colored and stuff. And I love those because they're like 3-dimensional blocks, and those are sick. Like the Woolly World ones for Yoshi, and they've had a couple of them that had like different materials where they were felt or something like that. It's like, that's cool. That adds to that extra little bit versus just pure plastic. But it'll be interesting to see how long they go for with the increase in price, because they can't just keep making them however much money and then say, well, we made them larger and stuff. And then it gets to a point of like, okay, well, kind of back to the beginning of this episode, larger is cooler. They eventually are more detailed, but why not just get one from a company that will have even better detail? Like that trade-off in, detail and accuracy of the character, whether it's face or clothing or just like how they, design the way the character looks in that pose. Is the trade-off really going to be worth it for what? Like I said, a color swap. One color swap, because most of the time it's not like they give you multiple things. You get like one thing. Splatoon was one full outfit, and because of that game, it made it feel like it was more, because you could swap out the head, the shirt, and the shoes. I think you do the pants too, so it might have been like 4 items. It's been quite a minute, so I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 items is how they do the customization. But you would get one full outfit per amiibo. So I was like, okay, it's one outfit, but because of that game, it feels a bit more stylized. You can switch things up a little bit. Donkey Kong, I think the costume was actually for Pauline, so I don't think it would have the same effect where it's like multiple pieces that you can rearrange. But it'll just be interesting to see, like, with what little they add to the games, because most games aren't really built around them. And they don't, even when they add stuff later where it's like, hey, you can retroactively use these, aside from Tears of the Kingdom, I'm assuming doing the exact same thing as Breath of the Wild, where it's like, hey, if you have, Classic Link, you can unlock this costume. If you have Wolf Link, you still get the Wolf Link companion for like a little bit. So I think they just threw that in there because it's like, well, we did it for the first game. All those things work here as well. If they do a Mario Maker 3, potentially they would bring all of those back in as well. Like, hey, we also made sure that it was updated. All of the old amiibo that used to do this, this, and this will do the same thing. Plus all the new amiibo, if you have, Mario Galaxy and stuff like that, Bonanza and things, new costumes or new abilities. I don't know if items work. Costumes was one thing, but I don't know about items. So that, it's an interesting element. Although I do think Luigi did add like a specific mushroom. I think there was actually some amiibo that did add, certain mushrooms. Granted, that was also when they were super cheap and like for $15, and they just threw stuff in because it was like nothing was made for Mario Maker. Not that I can recall, unless that was during the 30th, because Mario Maker has been out for a minute, because that was on the Wii U. So it's been a minute since the first Mario Maker. Just think about that. So that might have been the 30th, around the 30th anniversary, when I ended up getting like the 8-bit Mario amiibo. But I don't know if that was made, I guess that was just the 30th anniversary thing. So I don't remember if that's when Mario Maker came out. I'm just mentioning the time frame of what I'm trying to remember. But Mario Maker 3 comes out, they might retroactively do that as well. But there's so many amiibo out there, and it's like, well, these don't do anything. I don't think the Snake amiibo does anything outside of give you a shadow clone version of Snake when you play Smash Brothers. But it looks cool. I have both the Bayonetta amiibo, which was 100%, like a lot of people, you pick up characters that you just like, and I mean, let's be honest, some of the characters, you got to get what you got to get. I made a whole episode on, franchises that need more merch, and Bayonetta was 100% one of them. And I was like, I'm going to make sure I have both of those amiibo. and I bought both of them because I love Bayonetta. So I got my Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 costumes in Amiibo form. I got Ryu because I thought it was super cool. I got Little Mac because Little Mac I actually got as a gift because Little Mac is my favorite character in the game. So somebody actually got me that as a gift, and that was, I think Little Mac was probably like wave 2. So that was once again when they were literally in the $15. They were like $12 honestly when they first came out. So that was when they first started. So I have like my couple Amiibo here and there that I got because it's like either this character is like insanely hard to get or just, no merch. Like when the F am I gonna get Little Mac merch, So, I got Little Mac, I got Ryu. Not that you can't get a lot of Street Fighter merch, but there's not that much. As much as you might think. Capcom is weird like that. Once again, check out that episode because Capcom be doing a lot of stuff where I'm like, 30 years, huh? And I can't buy a single thing outside of some effing like art books. Like, give me something. So, I got my characters that I really like. And there's, of course, like I said, I would love to get Snake, but at this point, I'm kind of in the era of just being like, there's small little figures that I'm not really going to do anything with. Outside of Splatoon, which is strictly for the purposes of I love Splatoon, so I will get all of those because they actually, I think they're so vibrant and everything. I also like just looking at them. Most of them aren't even, I didn't even take them out of the box. Because, like I said, I'm not even really playing the games. It's not even to keep them in the box. It's literally just, I'm not really playing the game, so I just didn't take them out yet. Like, at some point, I probably will. I might not. At some point, I'm probably going to end up playing Splatoon. So, we'll see how it goes. But at this point, like, 90% of my Splatoon Amiibo are just sitting in the box because the only ones I have out are my original trio from when I first got them. Other than that, everything else is still in the box because I just wasn't playing the other games yet. But I was like, I'm going to make sure I get those Amiibo. That's for sure. But we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see what the prices do. We'll see if they do turn things around because I think there's a possibility. Like, if they did more than just one costume, I think that's when you get in the range of being like, okay, this actually works a little bit. Like, we can do something with this where, hey, I can get, maybe 3 or 4 costumes. I don't expect them to be like, you spent $20 and you get 10 new costumes. They wouldn't do that. It would be great if they did. It's a color swap, especially for a game, if it was kind of like Splatoon or Donkey Kong where you can do the pieces together. It's almost like getting, you do 3 costumes, 10 costumes and then 3 apiece. That's like getting 30 free items. So depending on the game, it'll obviously make, different differences. But it's just an interesting idea. It's interesting to see where this is eventually going to go and what the peak is going to be. Because at some point, they're just not going to do them. For a lot of games, they won't. They're, as it stands now, it's already a bit rare. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Metroid will keep it going, which is cool because, the Metroid Dread had another duel. Actually, it might have had 3 figures because I think it had a doubles pack, and then there was like another one that might have been the enemy by itself, or maybe it was just the duo. But they made it for that, which is probably because Samus looks super cool, so they're like, we can easily throw these. Honestly, I think every Metroid game is going to end up having an Amiibo just because they're going to change the costume every time. And, vehicle or not, or extra monster or not, I'm like, you swap the costume, she looks cool. I think they're going to do that all the time for her. So I think she might get it, and Yoshi potentially could, because Yoshi is also always coming out with something different. Like, so the Woolly Yarn game, and then they might do something unique with the new book game coming out. So we'll see about that. Who's to say? It's not like it'll be paper mache or anything, but they might do something to make it look a little bit different. But it's Yoshi. Like, Yoshi's definitely getting something. So I'm curious to see, what games they're going to keep adding things for, especially as we go into kind of the next phase of, just really the next year or two of the Switch 2 being out, and what new games that we don't even know about yet. Like, we're still waiting for the first big batch of things with, Metroid and even the new Hyrule Warriors game coming out. So we're still waiting on like our first giant batch. That's kind of what the whole Nintendo Direct was about. Like, they did a full hour, obviously half of that was Mario, but still, it was like, here's this, and all these other things. And then now we're at the point of like, all right, we got release dates for all the stuff we were kind of waiting for. And now we're waiting for brand new announcements. So that's the phase we're in. We know what we're getting. We have to wait to see what we're gonna get. So it'll be interesting to see. I would love to know your thoughts on this. I think they'll keep them going, but it's so hard to say because I'm like, they'll make them more rare, but they're already rare as is. They don't come out as much as it seems. It just, every time they do come out, it's always in batches. So it'll always be like, hey, here's new Amiibo. And then there's always like 3 or 4. And at this point, that always feels like a lot, but it's kind of how it's always been, where they announce a couple at a time, and like I said, every once in a while, I know they're making money because let's be honest, it's Nintendo, and so they're making money off of it. They will always make money off of it. And then when you get into the realm of kind of the Smash Brothers side, of course, I know a bunch of people bought Sephiroth, and I'm pretty sure Cloud has one too. I've even thought about getting both of those. I think Cloud, just like Bayonetta, has 2 costumes because it's his Final Fantasy VII and then his Advent Children costume as well. So he has 2 of those. And I thought about getting that, and I was like, well, they also have Sephiroth. It's kind of, like, it's a nice small figure. You get anything big for Sephiroth, he's got to have the wing, otherwise it's pointless. But that junk is huge, and also like an 18-foot sword. So like, you get a smaller version. It's like that's actually kind of perfect for him. So they have a unique kind of hold depending on what games they're doing it for. But then it's like, I don't know. I didn't think of this. It wouldn't work. But I was gonna say, what if they put out Amiibo when they re-release, because eventually it's gonna happen, but OG Smash Brothers on NSO. I doubt that they would make Amiibo that do nothing, but at the same time, Amiibo barely do anything as is. They could just say, oh, we're making this Amiibo because we're putting out classic Smash Brothers, but if you put it into, Ultimate or whatever, it'll do whatever dumb thing you want it to do, or it'll just be that character again. That's probably what it'll be. It'll just be this character, and then that's it. But the figure itself is what looks different. So they might actually do that, which I'm not gonna lie. If they came out with Polygon Amiibo, would that be dumb? Because I think it would actually be effing genius. And it would sell like crazy. That would probably be like an insane wave if they were like, I mean, it's not like it's that many characters. They could do the whole cast of OG Smash Brothers, and those would sell like crazy. Other ones might sell like decent enough. I mean, they still do it, so obviously they always sell decent enough. But those, I think, would actually sell like crazy. If they start to do Amiibo in general of some of their older games, and then, like I said, they were like, color swap, which is already what they do, I think they might actually sell them a lot more. But not that I really want to give them any ideas, but that's something I could see. Even if it doesn't really attach to like that game, they could just throw another game out and be like, hey, all these Amiibos you guys got can go to this. Like I said, do it with Smash Brothers, and then it's just the character again. And that's literally it. Just if you never got an Amiibo, here you go. You can have another Shadow character or whatever. So I don't know how long they'll last. I think, admittedly, they'll last for quite a while. But it's hard to say if they'll last beyond Switch 2. Granted, that was also like the huge question of what they were going to do even beforehand. But they're still making it. They're still making new ones. They're making new ones for games that aren't even Nintendo franchises. I was really shocked with the Street Fighter ones. And then, once again, I was even more shocked with the prices. But they're making them for games that are just coming on the console. Not that I expected, this would never happen. But if they did like a Resident Evil thing, I'd have no choice. But that would never happen. Like, man, if they made like a little, like a Stars like ID card or something as an Amiibo, or a RPD badge or something, once again, would never happen on Earth. But for a franchise that gets no merch, I would do that. For Resident Evil, I 100%. I'd pick that up in an instant, in a heartbeat. I would pick that up. But I would never in my life buy Resident Evil 9 on the Switch, that's for sure. So I would never actually experience what the Amiibo does for real, but I'd have it because it's Resident Evil merch. So outside of that, I think, they'll keep doing what they're doing, where it's like, hey, these are our main franchises. We'll keep pumping them out for Samus because she'll get a new costume every time. We'll find something to do, whether it's old, old Wii games and stuff, bringing things back for like Galaxy 1 and 2, and it's like, hey, we can make Amiibo for that. Which I don't even know what those do either, but they are actual Switch games, so it's going to be something. Once again, I don't know, never even played those 2 games, so I don't know if they have costumes or if they made new costumes, they put in new pages of the notebook. Maybe they'll throw in like some new pointless color swaps or something like that. It'll give you a power up or whatever, just like with Donkey Kong, where it's like, hey, you can do this, and then it's like, oh cool, you gave me like the word Kong in ice. That's so cool of you, thank you very much. So that's what they do, but they still make them, and clearly they still make them because they still make money. So I think they'll last at least until the end of the Switch. The question will be if they continue past this. They've lasted already a super long time. The Wii U, of course, is when they came out. They got them for the Wii U, And then they almost seemed like they completely disappeared. Even on the base Switch, it seemed like they were like just vanishing, but they would constantly do it in waves. And let's be honest, they were constantly doing it for Smash Brothers. That's why it survived. It was just Smash Brothers continuing on for an eternity. Even now, I mean, the Sephiroth and Cloud ones are like some of the newer ones, as well as Snake. Like Snake was newer, if I'm not mistaken. Or didn't they like redo some of them as well, or like re-release them and made them look even better? So that's another thing that I don't know if they'll actually do, but they could. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, overall, I think this might be kind of the edge of where they can reach, especially with the prices, but with how little functionality they truly have in most games. And then they're also normally kind of plain. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But I think end of this era, end of this console, which is still a decent chunk of time since the Switch 2 is new, I think it can last until the end of Switch 2, and then it's like, all right, I think it'll be done. Because once Smash Brothers is fully over, which it is already, because I think they've already done everybody, unless we're still kind of waiting for some of them. Once again, I don't buy them anymore, so I'm not 100% up to date on that. But if they're not still doing that, they're not going to start pumping up. I mean, if they want to start busting out F-Zero, that could be the next hit. They haven't done anything for Mario Kart either. If we're being honest, that's the gold mine right there. Mario Kart, any of the racing games. That's why Kirby is probably going to have way more than just the two that we've seen, especially because you can swap them. And now they're like, oh, Sakurai, because you know it was Sakurai that did that. And it was like, oh, you know, Sakurai, that's a good idea. We never would even let anybody do this because it's an effing racing game. But you know what? You're Sakurai. You gave us Smash Brothers, which is also the only reason we have Amiibo. So you get to have two special Amiibo, and they swap. We can make 800 more, and then people can swap them around and make them look different on the shelves. Hold up, we have Mario Kart. Everybody's kind of hating on it, but they wouldn't hate if they had figures. Just saying, it's shocking that there's not a single Mario Kart Amiibo at all. It's weird that they never did it for even for Deluxe. But it's just out there now. And I'm sure people are saying it more and more now that Kirby has done it. And it's like, oh, that's cool, you can swap them out. Man, what if we had Mario Kart like that? How do we not have any Mario Kart Amiibo? And you know Nintendo is just sitting there like, yep, this is our box that we had waiting for more money to come in, and now you guys are telling us you're gonna give it. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, end of Switch 2 I think is kind of our limit, but we'll see ultimately. I would love to know your thoughts on this. How long will Amiibo truly last, especially with these prices going up like they are? So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.